Rams, Cardinals. Going through what y'all need to know to make some money on this bitch. So first thing, we got the picks real quick. Rams favored by 2.5 on the road in Arizona, and over under set at 48. So I'm gonna be pretty strongly on the Rams minus 2.5 here, even favorites on the road. And as far as the over under, I actually lean on the under 48, but I don't think that's the best bet in the world. And I would feel much better about the Rams minus 2.5. Even if that gets to like 3, I'm still good with it too. But yeah, so stick around and I'll explain the why and how that go down. So first, we got the Rams offense versus the Cardinals defense. In terms of injuries, nothing relevant on the Rams. On the Cardinals defense, though, Jalen Thompson is still out, safety. So you're still looking at Chris Banjo as the the Cardinals' other safety, which is going to be rough. And then Angelo Blackson and Rashard Lawrence, both defensive tackles for the Cardinals, listed as questionable. I'm going to operate as if they're both playing. Blackson matters to me. Lawrence, not so much. So first thing, we got offensive line versus defensive line. Rams offensive line, not great. Still starting, and you saw that last week for Sporting there. Still starting Joe Noteboom at left tackle, who should not be playing tackle in the NFL. Um, but as far as the run game goes, offense versus defense here, I mean, the Rams are not going to be generating a lot of push in this game. We saw just last week, right, that the Cardinals, despite all the injuries they've been through on the defense, stood up to the legitimately good Patriots offensive line as run blockers. So I think the combination again this week of Blackson, Trayvon Coley, who I like, and Matapico, who old but can still do a little bit of a job, just kind of being a fat guy right in the middle, are going to hold up pretty well. Especially, I mean, Austin Blythe is still really bad as the Rams center. He's looked better this year than last year, but last year he was probably the worst line in the NFL. So not not a huge bar. And there are other guys, David Edwards, Austin Corbett. I like some things they do, not crazy. And on the edges, I mean, again, Joe Noteboom should not be playing tackle. He's better as a run blocker, being a natural guard, a bigger guy, but he's not anything special. And he's just, he leans on people really well, but he's a little slow and he's not crazy in like one-on-ones in terms of really controlling line of scrimmage. And the Cardinals run edge defenders, again, you saw last week, they held up to good run blocking tackles, and I think Marcus Gold and Devon Kennard, pretty good. So then you talk about the second level. Um, Cardinals linebackers, they're okay. So Jordan Hicks is good, pretty good. Devondre Campbell, not so much. He did pretty reasonable last week, and I talked about that was going to happen because he can play like straightforward in the box run schemes reasonably, but to the edges, sideline to sideline, he's not good. And the Rams have one of the most lateral running games in the NFL, so you're going to see that he actually gets pretty exposed to your. Though I'll mention the Rams at this point, given their injuries, are lacking the ability on their O line that they have in other spots to like really exercise their run game. None of, I mean, Corbett's okay getting to second level, but there's not a ton there. So I would say if it's a tie, it's going to end up kind of being in the offense's favor, which is the case here, especially given the scheme. So the overall run game, I mean, it's going to be okay because of the way they do things, but there's no advantage that I look at here and say, yeah, they're really going to be able to run the ball. I mean, the running backs don't create yards, great. Daryl Henderson's just whatever. And I mean, he's a little bit better now, but other than that, they just don't have a ton of advantages in the run game outside of their scheme, which only gets you so far. So then you talk about the pass game. Um, so pass rush first. This is bad versus bad. I mean, the Rams interior O line are all have really significant flaws in pass protection, but the Cardinals lack any even reasonably notable interior rushers. Zach Allen is the closest to that, and he is effectively nothing to take note of in any game script. And on the edges, the Cardinals still are very good. I mean, Marcus Golden is okay, and he can be worse tackles like he did last week. I talked about how that was going to happen, and I actually think that's going to be the case here. Joe Noteboom, really bad pass protection, and Marcus Golden is definitely good enough to give him problems. Devon Kennard, if he plays too, and even the trash that is Hassan Reddick, as I'm sure he's a nice guy. That guy cannot rush the passer with any use to save his life. He's gotten sacks this year from cleaning up things that any other reasonable athlete in his place would have. But even he in this game can, I think, create some pressure versus Joe Noteboom. So they're not clean, but I think the Rams can adjust to that. They generally throw the ball quick enough that that's not going to be a gigantic issue. So you talk about the receivers. And here is I think the largest discrepancy in this whole game. Robert Woods is fantastic, incredibly good, and he is going to just destroy whoever the Cardinals put on him, whether it's Patrick Peterson or Drake Kirkpatrick. Both of them are bad at versus Robert Woods type of receiver. You know, a quicker guy, good route running technician, finds space very well. Neither of them are neither of the corners are lateral athletes that can even ballpark Robert Woods. He's going to be open constantly in this game. And so Cooper Kupp, I have a lot of issues with him as like a man-to-man beater, and I think that's pretty borne out at this point. He's not very good at it, except, very notably, except when he plays trash slot corners, which he's doing in this game. Byron Murphy's awful, one of the worst corners in the NFL, and you're going to see Cooper Kupp kill him. It reminds me, so last year, I don't know if you remember or not, when the Rams played the Bengals, and another guy name I bring up a lot is Tony McRae, is the example of the worst pass defender in the NFL. They played each other. That's the game that Cooper Kupp had like over 200 yards and just went absolutely nuts. And it's something similar here. Now, Byron Murphy's not quite that bad, but Cooper Kupp is going to be awesome in this game. And the tight ends, they're not going to be taken away, but I don't think they're going to be great as they are. I mean, not that they're necessarily great always, but I don't think they're going to be killer because Jordan Hicks, Isaiah Simmons a little bit has shown better in recent weeks, and even Budda Baker I think can help there. Oh, I should mention too, Budda Baker he helps tremendously for the Cardinals in the run game too. Bad coverage player, very good near the line of scrimmage player, so he's going to really limit the impact of the Rams running game as well. So then you talk about the quarterback versus the defense. Jared Goff, he's really predictable when he has struggles. He struggles with like complicated defense. He struggles with zone defense. He struggles under a lot of pass rush. None of those apply here. He's going to be just fine. Last week when he struggled, again, I was at the 49ers run an interesting zone defense. His receivers didn't get a ton of separation, and given the 49ers pass rush in that game, it was better than what the Cardinals have here. And you're going to see that Jared Goff's going to be fine. Now, I don't think he's going to be crazy because there is enough pass rush to limit him just standing back in the pocket all day. And really, he relies on the middle of the field being open. And then that's another reason why, with the 49ers, tremendous linebackers and middle of the field defense. And even no matter how good the receivers are, Jared Goff is still reliant on like his tight ends or even Cooper Kupp or whatever being open in the middle. And while I think Cooper Kupp it's a lot has to do with what the tight ends are able to do, just because of the way they run play action and stuff, which is not going to be great here. So I think Jared Goff's going to be good, but he's not going to go crazy. And the pass rush is enough to keep him honest too. And then once you get to the red zone, it's going to be decent. I mean, McVay helps. That's the main part where I think McVay plays a big role in this game is converting drives into touchdowns. But Goff's not great in the red zone, and Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp are both good, but the closer you get to the goal line, the worse they get. They're still reasonable, but I have them at the Rams overall to point spread at 20 to 27. I don't really see any way it gets higher unless the Cardinals are so awful on defense or on offense, which I don't think is going to happen. But also, I don't realistically see a way that gets any lower. So the Cardinals offense versus the Rams defense. Injury-wise, Cardinals offense, still no Larry Fitzgerald. He's on the COVID list. He actually got COVID. And on the Rams defense, Sebastian Joseph Day, good nose tackle, is questionable. I do care, but the Rams have a lot of depth at that spot. And Terrell Lewis, rookie outside linebacker, out. Don't care. So when we talk about the O-line versus the D-line, this is just a bloodbath. I mean, the Cardinals, every time I talk about them, they have the weakest interior offensive line in the NFL, by bar none. Mason Cole is the single weakest lineman who plays any snaps in the NFL. Now, part of that is because they don't ask their players to go out and like bulldoze people. So sure, in other schemes, maybe they would look better, but they're in this scheme. And versus the Rams front, who are like incredibly good, this is just going to get really ugly. Michael Brockers and Aaron Donald are both going to dominate the line of scrimmage constantly in this game, as well as, I mean, A'Shawn Robinson, Morgan Fox are both good enough. If Sebastian Joseph plays too, they can't move him off his spot even an inch in this game. And Greg Gaines too, backup nose tackle for the Rams, is big enough. It's going to get really ugly now. On the edges, it's a little bit better for the Cardinals because I actually do like the Cardinals tackles to an extent. But even as run blockers, they're not asked to do the same things other teams asked to do. And the Rams, the outside linebacker, edge players, Leonard Floyd, Samson Ebukam, you can say what you want about them as pass rushers, and I will when we get to that, but they are disciplined, good edge defenders for sure. So it's bad. I mean, and then on the second level, Rams. So they pretty much full time played Troy Reader, and Micah Kaiser went on IR a couple of weeks ago's place. He didn't show me anything really either way. I'm not. I'm kind of holding off on making declarations on him, given it was just one game. I didn't necessarily see anything that scared me terribly, or anything that made me say like, "Oh yeah." So we'll see. And then Kenny Young is the other linebacker. He's not very good. So there's places they can you can attack these Rams linebackers, but I just don't think the Cardinals going to make it that far very often. Like their scheme's not they run so they try to run a lot of the like kind of crazy misdirection, interesting stuff that the Rams 49ers do, but they suck at it. Kingsbury cannot scheme that stuff nearly as well as they can. And so while I think there's going to be a few for the overall game, I think there's going to be a few chunks because Kenny and Drake, Trey Edmonds, once they do get space, really can exploit it. But it's going to be really far and few between, and there's going to be a ton of stops at the line of scrimmage. It's not going to be pretty at all. So then you talk about the pass game. So first pass rush, Aaron Donald is going to be destructive in this game. As destructive as an interior defender can possibly be, he's going to be in this game. Michael Brockers too is not nothing. He's enough that he can really move the guards in this game. Now on the edges, that's where it's a lot better for the Cardinals. Humphreys and Beachum, the Cardinal tackles, are better pass protectors than the Rams are edge rushers, like by a pretty wide margin. But it's not necessarily enough for me to not worry about it because they're not perfect, and Leonard Floyd is not awful, and Kyler Murray creates so much pressure for himself. I mean, Leonard Floyd could easily have 2 sacks just from Kyler Murray running next to him and him sticking an arm out. But in a pocket, I think they'll be okay. But again, Kyler's going to be forced out of the pocket so much because of the interior pressure. Yikes. Then the receiver versus the corners. I mean, Jalen Ramsey is going to significantly limit DeAndre Hopkins. Happened every time he played the Jags before. It happened. I said it last week when he played the Patriots with Stephon Gilmore, really similar player to Jalen Ramsey, and I think he was like 6 for 55 or something, and it's going to be something similar here. He'll have some wins. He's good enough to have some wins, but on a down-and-down basis, he's not good enough to drive the offense when he plays a corner like this, and that's pretty well proven at this point. And then the other spots, they're going to be awful. Christian Kirk is not a good receiver. He's just fast down the field, and Isabella is effectively the same thing. And Darius Williams and Troy Hill, the other Rams corners, are really good, and they're the exact type of players I would pick to stop like a Christian Kirk. So there's going to be a gigantic lack of separation in this game at almost all times, outside of like a little bit from Hop, and they're going to overcorrect for that. The Rams are, I'm sure. It's going to get bad now. Yeah, it's going to get bad. As far as Kyler goes, so Kyler is still, he just limits his own offense as a passer, like on a down-to-down basis. Now, he also has a pretty high floor because of the way he runs, and he does, I mean, he clearly has good quarterback skills, and in a better situation, he would be a lot better. But here, he's not in a great situation or even a good one, and it's going to bring out a lot of his bad tendencies where he's going to be scrambling into sacks a lot. He's not going to be able to create a ton of space. Now, I think he's going to be able to run decently because of the lack of the Rams athletes at the second level. And his willingness to throw deep balls fairly consistently is going to be useful because the Rams' free safety back there, John Johnson, or their 2 safeties, John Johnson's okay. Jordan Fuller, he does some nice things for a 7th-round rookie, but that dude is still slow. And if Christian Kirk is running, he's going to run a straight line right past him. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's 1 or 2, maybe even 3 in this game that are, I don't know if they're going to be caught or not, but are going to be like open, deep shots. So the overall pass game, it's just going to be mediocre on a down-to-down basis. There's a ton going against them every play, every time they drop back to pass. Whether it's Kyler just still not being a killer as a quarterback, whether it's Aaron Donald, I'm telling you, is going to, oh God. And it's the disciplined edge rush too. We're going to clean up stuff. And it's the tremendous secondary. There's just a huge lack of stuff. But the thing about Kyler is really similar to Lamar Jackson. Both of them, and it's not just because they're rushing, actually. It has maybe even more to do with the way that they pass the ball, combined with the rushing for sure. They just have high floors. It's borderline impossible to keep them out of the high teens. I would say for whatever reason. It's pretty clear why. Because they're just willing to do successful things, and they're pretty good at it. So I have them in points range. And in the red zone, once they get there, there I actually think they have a little bit of a chance to be okay because of Kyler's rushing and because of DeAndre Hopkins. But we've seen the Cardinals before be a really bad red zone team. So I have them as a point spread of 16 to 24, and I don't think it gets lower than 16 under really any circumstance. But over 24 would be they would need defensive like turnover help for that, which is I guess possible, but I feel pretty good about that one as well. So overall, yeah, I feel strongly about the Rams minus 2.5. Not quite like one of my best like locks of the week or anything like that, but feel really strongly about it, and I would take it myself, as well as the Rams money line. And as far as the over/under, I would lean the under because I think it's way more likely the Cardinals and the Rams struggle to score, especially the Cardinals though, than it is that either team is successful in offense. But not impossible. It is in a dome, and both these teams have shown the ability to score points in the past. So I'll lean the under on that. But yeah, Rams minus 2.5, and that is Cardinals Rams.